building AI for India. I'm the moderator, I'm Deepak. And we have Srikanth here from Upgrad. We have Pankaj from AWS, and we have Sandeep from PhysicsWala. So we're going to try to ask the panelists a few questions. And at the end, we have some time for questions from the audience as well. So that's how we're going to go about it. Let's start off asking our panelists about some AI use cases for India they're particularly excited about. Srikanth, you want to go first?
Sure. First of all, morning everyone. I think we've hit a coffee break here. So for those of you who've fueled up, thank you for coming back in. My name is Srikanth Iyengar. I run the enterprise business for Upgrad. It's a big privilege to be part of this skilling community. India is, of course, our biggest market, and we're seeing growth both in enterprise and consumer. To answer the question that Deepak has proposed, to pose rather, I think we see many, many use cases, but one specific area that we're quite excited about is in the government and public sector, how public services can be impacted by using AI. Cutting through backlogs is something that we see quite a bit, because we're seeing demand come from government and quasi-governmental organizations on reskilling their employees to be able to drive productivity through services. So I'll talk a bit more about that, but that's probably one thing we're seeing. So.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Pankaj Gupta. I lead the public sector business for AWS India. Public sector for us is all central government, all state and local government, all healthcare, education, oil and gas, energy. One use case which is very close to my heart, and as Indians, we're all very proud of the kind of population scale national platforms that Government of India has built, whether it is Aadhaar, the biometric-based digital identity system for 1.4 billion Indians, or UPI, which has done over 100 billion transactions and trillions of dollars of mobile-to-mobile payments. But again, talking about really Government of India today, if you see, is looking at becoming a $1 trillion digital economy, or a $5 trillion overall economy in terms of becoming the world's third largest economy. One use case that I want to talk about is from healthcare. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about this organization called National Health Authority, which is looking at building the world's largest public-funded health insurance scheme. They have a mandate to make healthcare affordable and accessible for 1.4 billion Indians, and providing free health insurance to 550 million poor and vulnerable Indians in India for secondary and tertiary healthcare. But that's not enough. The point here is now making healthcare affordable, equitable, inclusive, and we all know the real India lives in the villages. So they are using generative AI, cloud technologies, and one use case that I want to talk about is, especially they are spending billions of dollars as subsidy from Government of India. Obviously, when we are talking about dollars, there would be fraudulent claims. So using generative AI, in real time, they are able to identify the fake claims in the entire NHS system, which has done worth 70 million hospitalizations till date, $11.2 billion, and not just identification of the fake claims. They are able to provide those insights to the business decision makers or the policy makers to take action in real time. And not just that, government is now able to take this scheme to literally to the next use case, like they have come up with a scheme to make this health insurance available for the people of 70 plus years of age. That means really making universal health coverage possible for all the Indians.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So I'm Sandeep, and I lead data and AI at PhysicsWala. So I think, well, I might be biased, but AI in education is what I believe has a massive impact in a country like India. So if we kind of take out how PhysicsWala has been aiming at democratizing education by making it accessible and affordable. So we have our year-long courses that kind of are at 4,000, 5,000 rupees, which is $50 a year. So because of which we have so many students coming from Tier 3, Tier 4 cities, and you have these mega classrooms where teachers kind of handle close to 100K students. So, but content delivery is one part where I think teachers deliver it the best. But in order to provide an ecosystem where you have personal tutoring, doubt solving, grading the answers, I think AI would play a massive role. And fortunately, over the past couple of years, we have been working consciously on making this effort. And till date, we had close to 2 million students who have leveraged these multiple suite of applications that we are calling it as Alak AI. and we have almost close to 45 million doubts that that students have asked. So I think the aim is to take it even further and make it more accessible and even more accurate. And yeah, I think with all the innovations that are happening right now around enhanced reasoning and all, I think education would gonna be disrupted in a big way.
Okay, that's interesting perspective. In the US, we had a new government come in, and it's been quite controversial because they're trying to reduce the size of government using AI with Elon coming in. And they want to use AI agents and reduce the number of government workers needed for a certain task. What is the use case in India for government applications? Is it the same sort of reducing the size of government use case, or are the use cases different?
So let me take a few examples if that's okay. So, and there are many companies, small, medium size, who are solving for it. I'll take one specific use case in the legal space that I know of, right? So you've got a backlog of civil cases across the board in courts, whether it be at the state level or at the, let's say, central level, that need to be processed. And often it's not just about legislation or decisions being made, it's also about all the documentation pertaining to that case being translated into the local language. Obviously, you've got models like Bharshini. So that's a use case that's being applied in various cases where, let's say district level courts or high courts in states are just cutting through. So that's one example of a use case. I'll take another example that's really close to our heart. We have the privilege of working closely with CII, Confederation of Indian Industry. And CII have about 85,000 members in India. Needless to say, the top 300-400 members who are the biggest companies get a lot of attention. And one thing that CII came to us with mid last year, or probably September last year, was, we are getting demand from our MSME customers about what does AI mean for us. So we're running a program in about 20 cities across the country where we're covering 10,000 founder directors of MSMEs. These are guys with, or people rather, gender neutral, with at least about 10 to 20 to 25 employees. And they're looking at where can I use this in my business. So it could be something as simple as I track my expenses on an Excel sheet. How do I ensure that if I have to hire one more guy 2 weeks from now, can an AI model help me do that? So we're seeing use cases across the board. And that to me is the democratization of technology, because, if you went back 10 years, you had to be a techie to use technology, but today you can be a user to use AI, and I think that's fascinating. That opens up a whole bunch of opportunities. So hopefully that gives you a sense.
Sure, makes sense. And following up on what you said, Sandeep, you talked about using AI for education. Have you folks done any learning outcome studies which show value with the personalized learning you're trying?
Yeah. So I think learning outcomes is, I think it's a bit complex to quantify it, right? I think you would actually want students to do better in their final exams, which in our case is, let's say, a student preparing for JEE or NEET. But so there are two aspects to it. One is on the learning experience side, but it has a substantial uptick, right? Where students who used to wait for hours to get a doubt answered, right now it's instantaneous within 10 to 15 seconds. And students who used to wait for days to evaluate their copies, now it's happening in real time. So with regards to learning outcomes, what we have kind of taking it is, let's say a student who is currently lacking in a certain chapter, can we kind of personalize and provide him a learning path, which will probably make it better with respect to the next exam that he is appearing for. So I think we are trying to do it in a small cohort because JEE and NEET, it happens once in a year. It's very difficult to kind of give a number, but we do see people who are accessing these learning paths get 20% more marks in general. So I think that would probably eventually translate to better outcomes in April, May, that's going to happen this year.
Yeah, that's a pretty specific number, 20% improvement because of the personalized learning path. That's great to hear. And one question I had for you, Pankaj, was at AWS, I'm guessing you deal with a whole lot of different customers, and you have customers in the US as well and India. What are some special considerations for India? Are people asking for lower cost models for AI? What are some considerations you're seeing?
No, again, I think very interesting question. So just picking up on the earlier question that you asked Srikanth as well, because I work with the government of India very, very closely, and I spent 8+ years. Those were the days when government used to ask us why cloud. Now today, I think they don't ask us anymore why cloud, but what kind of cloud and how can they quickly adopt cloud. But talking about now these considerations, and I spoke about some of the biggest population scale platforms. I'm sure as Indians, you would have heard about CoWIN. CoWIN is today the world's largest COVID vaccination system, which has done 2.2 billion vaccinations and 1.2 billion registrations. India is the only country where we were able to provide a COVID vaccination certificate, a QR code enabled COVID vaccination certificate within 30 seconds. So this is what India stands out as far as these platforms are concerned. Again, I'm sure all of us as Indians here, we use DigiYatra. So DigiYatra, we all know, is like a walk in the park experience. And using AI and cloud technologies, it is about like a walk in the park experience from airport entry to all the boarding gates. And it is doing something like a facial recognition system using AI, which is using a real-time biometric validation. And by the way, security is very, very important. The reason I'm talking about these biggest platforms, if you see, CoWIN did 1 billion plus Indians. And we all know real India lives in the villages. How do you build these? And today's topic is AI for Bharat. So making these systems, which are accessible for 1 billion plus Indians, equitable, affordable, and maybe inclusive as well. So the biggest consideration for me over my 8+ years of experience, how do you really bridge the divide between the urban and rural India? And by the way, technology is fine, but can we really see how technology, whether it is AI or cloud, can be really seen like a tool? Now I want to give you some examples again, healthcare. While education is again important, but let me use healthcare because healthcare is all about saving lives. Using AI, one of our partners called Cure.ai, and today, I'm not sure if you know, India accounts for 26% of the world's cervical cancer deaths. Similarly, 25% of the deaths that happen because of lung cancer or tuberculosis. And the main reason for that is we are not able to do early diagnosis or early detection of these fatal diseases. What Cure.ai has done is they have built an AI-based algorithm, which can, very simple, it can just read the X-ray or CT scans. And now maybe because of that, with, by the way, 99% plus accuracy, with that now a lot of good radiologists, nobody wants to live in the villages. Now with that, and similarly on the cervical cancer, a rural health worker, less than 1 minute, can conduct quick and efficient screening on those use cases, and we can save lives. In the case of cervical cancer, 200,000 lives of women, people in India, we've been able to save because of that. Now the second thing is, technology is fine, but unless and until you really make sure that the technology is adopted, we have a fair balance between the demand and the supply side. Again, talking about healthcare, 60% we have out-of-pocket expenses in a country like India. There are small clinics, there are small doctors. How do you make sure that they adopt this technology? So skilling becomes very, very important because it is not just about AI. AI has to be seen like a tool for innovation and experimentation. Doctors have to adopt it. So that's the second thing. And the third biggest consideration that I see in India while working with them, anything that has to be at scale. We can do a lot of POCs, we can do a lot of experimentations, but how do you really make sure that whatever is being built at India scale? And when you talk about India scale, Government of India is talking about open source, open APIs, open standards. They want the choice and the flexibility. And by the way, as AWS, we provide that choice to our customers, whether it is a model of, maybe text model, voice model, or a video model, or maybe a model that adopts in terms of cost, quality, or accuracy. So I think it is all about providing that choice and flexibility to the customers so that we can build at the complexity and diversity of India.
If I can just add on this, I think skilling is critical, like Pankaj said. And I just want to add what we are seeing from the market, right? We have the privilege of working with Indian corporates, with GCCs, with tech services firms. We support all of them on AI skilling. And I think there are three buckets we see. Clearly, there is technologists who need to use AI because they're using it as part of their job. But there's a lot of user literacy that comes into play, and I think that's what Pankaj is referring to. Because, it's an inflection point that users have to adopt. language is no longer a barrier, whether you use Bharshini or use whatever. But the user needs to feel like I can use it. It's intuitive, it's easy, and that will happen. That's one part. But the third intervention that's important is mindset change at decision makers. It's not just boardrooms and corporates, it's the local IAS officer who's running a district, it's all of these. Because unless those mindsets change that, yes, like any other inflection point, this comes with warning bells. Yes, there are privacy aspects that need to be sorted for. Like leaders like AWS make it pre-configured as much as possible to take those barriers away. Yes, there are other concerns that have to be solved for, but that's of any inflection point. And that mindset shift becomes critical. So I'd say that for the people in this room, literacy, obviously skilling for the people who actually implement the change, and mindsets for decision makers are critical to be able to drive this at Bharat at scale.
You brought up how employees can use AI to improve their performance and stuff. We have these discussions in Silicon Valley a lot. I speak with friends who are managers at Google, and they say an average employee of theirs gets at least 2x higher productivity in their software programming just by using AI for their coding. And so there is a worry, a real worry in Silicon Valley at least, that a lot of the low-skilled jobs are going to be reduced because of AI. And if you look at India and where India provides employment to people, there's zillions of people graduating with computer science degrees. A lot of them take low-skilled services jobs in places like Infosys and TCS and Wipro. And those jobs are the first ones which are going to be automated away. And even if the whole job's not automated away, if an engineer becomes 2x more productive, you need half as many engineers. So what should India do as a country to deal with this in the next 10 years? If a lot of the workforce today is working in these services jobs and those jobs are going to reduce or be more automated, where should India focus its development?
So you brought up Infosys and TCS. I was lucky to work in the tech services space for almost 20 years. I spent 13 years at Infosys, so I know that industry pretty well. My personal view, the jobs are not going to go away. And I talk from history. I mean, some of us in this room seem like you're old enough. I was definitely old enough to see what was Y2K. And then when Y2K finished in 2000, people thought jobs are going to go away. Jobs only increased. So we've seen these inflection points before, and it's not just technology. If you go back 200 years, when manufacturing was mechanized, suddenly jobs were going to go away. They did not go away. So here's my view, right? I think new jobs will get created. And I think there we've got to look at what we are sitting on in India. We have the world's largest talent pool by far. And yes, China has an equally large talent pool, but geopolitics come into play. We have the world's largest deployable talent pool. It's a gold mine. Secondly, we've got probably the world's largest data sets. Pankaj talked about it. I mean, you name it, we've got data sets that can train models, right? And we've got innovation that's happening 1,000,000 times over at scale, because we are a country of jugaad. We've all heard that, and it works in a good way. So given all of that stuff, I think this is a huge opportunity for us as a country, not just for the tech services space. There's a reason why the GCC headcount in the country is increasing even now at about 60–70%. If people thought jobs are going to go away, the GCCs will start scaling down. So, personally to me, new jobs, new job roles will get created, and we just need to adapt to those, and people need to upskill to those jobs.
To rephrase, I guess what we're saying is today's services jobs will probably evolve. There'll be new applications and markets emerging. And my question, I guess, is what are the new markets we need to train our engineers
No, clearly. So I'd say probably three big buckets, right? First of all, data skills in the tech. I'll talk tech services since you asked that question. Data skills and how you use data becomes very, very important. It's not just about processing data. You really need to understand the value you can extract from data. And Pankaj is smiling because every time people work on data, they make money. So you should smile very well. But data is important. And I think the other part, of course, is, you've got large language models. But in my view, the models that are going to evolve are private LLMs that are specific to specific use cases that sit behind a firewall on top of public large language models. So those skills in terms of building use cases and data sets specific to certain like value adds will sort of become critical. That's the second part. And the third part is privacy and security. I mean, cyber security will be key. And I talked about geopolitics. In that context, it is going to be super important to make sure that you make the right choices. So I'd say these are areas where new jobs will get created at scale.
And I would add AI in healthcare. We're going to use AI in a big way to improve people's health. And India's got a big
Healthcare and
pharmaceutical
education,
industry.
of course, I mean, are no-brainers. That's going to be the,
Any comments? Are there any other areas you think will grow the next 10 years and, help employ all the engineers we churn out?
No, yeah, I think definitely the productivity increase is obvious. I think we also see people using copilots, cursors, and they're able to kind of automate some of the mundane stuff that they would have been doing. And I think that gives opportunity to kind of skill in the around probably building that AI infrastructure layer, because eventually you see with models, open source models doing very well, you would need a big team who can manage these. And then how can you get these models to edge? You have a mobile, can an LLM or an SLM would be able to run in it. So all of this would add, I think, more folks into the whole AI infrastructure layer as well. Yeah.
I just want to add on this. So again, I think I want to bring up an example of National Skill Development Corporation of India. I do not know how many of you would know here that Government of India has a mission to skill, upskill, and reskill 800 million people in India. And India is looking at making India the global talent hub by 2030, that 25% of the global skills, technical skills will be produced by India. And as part of that, Government of India has built a portal called SIDH, Skill India Digital Hub, which is like one-stop shop, unified portal for all the learners in terms of their lifelong learning and continuous skill development. Basically, it is changing the paradigm from education to skilling to employment to entrepreneurship. One part of jobs is not just about employment, but also entrepreneurship. India needs a lot of entrepreneurs. And the way it does is, again, using AI. So I think what really they have done is so people can take live classes, digital trainings, or even AI-based assessments. Again, using this portal, and by the way, Government of India has broken the traditional barriers of a classroom-based learning to a more open, collaborative, and a digital-first environment. And as AWS as well, we understand the importance. So we have a lot of our own programs. Like one of the programs is called Tech Alliance, Skills to Jobs, where we are looking at connecting the employers with the education institutes and the learners. On one side, employers are telling the education institutes what are the real world use cases, real world problems that they need so that education institutes can change their course curriculum accordingly. And when a student is there, and after that, we're all connecting them together so that they are job ready for the future workplace.
The next question I guess I have is, we're seeing some geopolitical tensions between the US and China, where the US is preventing China from getting GPUs, and China's got DeepSeek, which came out recently as well. How does India react in a situation like this? India does have access to GPUs, which is a great thing, but what should India's strategy be in this world?
I mean, look, I'm just going to take a shot at this because I think we're all learning. But here's the take, right? One thing DeepSeek has shown us is, at least if what is underlying DeepSeek is true, that you can do it at like a fraction of the cost. And now Alibaba has sort of overtaken DeepSeek if you look at that. So to me, yes, access to GPUs will become important, but I think I still believe that use cases is where the market will go, and we probably want to focus on use cases. I know there's a debate out there. I think Nandan Nilekani was probably the biggest proponent of India being the use case capital of the world, and you've seen the argument from someone like an Arvind Srinivas at Perplexity, who's talked about the fact that still the models are important. But to me, India's value is the use cases, the data sets we have. Yes, GPUs will become a pawn, there will be tariffs put, but until we get to a point where we can make those ourselves, we are dependent on global models. But global companies have no option but to focus on India because we are a scale market. There's probably no other market at scale other than China which they can't access. So yeah.
Yeah, and one thing India does have is a lot of people and a lot of healthcare data, and it's easier to get healthcare data, health data from people in India compared to the US.
It is, but then there are also privacy issues. And, for example, I know, since you talked to the Bay Area, Stanford Med uses a lot of data from India to the extent they can. But the profiling the DNA, a cure that works in India won't necessarily work for a Caucasian audience. So there are those kind of aspects that need to be taken into account as well, because your nutrition rates, your upbringing, your DNA profiling is all very, very different. So, but it is a data set that can help you find cures that you probably didn't find otherwise.
So maybe I'll just add a perspective to this. So had this event been happening a couple of weeks back, I think it was US all the way, right? I think DeepSeek was not there. But what I believe was the inflection point was more because of ChatGPT as a product, right? I think the kind of ease that it gave, that not just for a data scientist, but probably to a business executive or to a product guy, right? All of those guys, they had this power in their hands and they were able to try out stuff, right? So had it not been happening and you want a 300 billion parameter model to be deployed on your server, right? I think affordability is not at all there. So I think now with what I would say is probably AI, the innovation has kind of happened or started from US, but then the disruption is probably happening from China, where they are getting these models which are much more cheaper, and you'll be able to host them, and you have this whole new architecture where you would only want certain parameters to be active all the time. So all of these advancements, I think this would eventually benefit India, because we have those population scale use cases where let's say technology is not yet there, but with these affordable solutions, you can actually take it to every household. So I think that's where India, as Shrikant was mentioning, I think we should actually be more focusing towards using these and building those impactful solutions.
I just want to add on India AI mission. I don't know how many of us are following here what government of India is really doing. As per the latest budget, India AI mission, the budget has been increased from what it was last year, 250 crores. And by the way, they had to reduce the budget in 2023 from 250 crores to 173. And in this year, 25-26, the budget has been increased to 2,000 crores. And by the way, it has multiple elements to the India AI mission. Shared compute capacity is just one part. By the way, that compute capacity at 40% subsidy that government of India is looking at providing to all the academicians, researchers, startups, organizations like us to come up, innovate, that is one part. The second part is, beyond the shared compute capacity, government of India is also looking at building a common data set platform. So there'll be a lot of focus on creating a separate data set platform. Third, they are creating a separate application development and innovation platforms. Fourth, there is a separate, I would say, a fast track on the future skills and the financing for the startups. So the way I would say the DeepSeek, while government of India has the right intent earlier, all this has done is accelerated the mission so that it reaches the last mile in a very, very quick and efficient manner. But it is for us to really go and seize this opportunity now as far as the India mission is concerned.
And on this, just to provide the financial wrap on this, what Pankaj talked about, I just saw a Business Standard article which said that this AI-led economy could add another $350 billion to $400 billion to the Indian economy by 2030. Just to set that in context, tech and BPO services today is about $300 billion. So you're talking about creating an industry that is as big or bigger. And that, can you imagine the downstream effect this can have? I mean, this is not just for the top of the pyramid. This can proliferate across all of India and improve standards of living. So, yes.
Makes sense. So we talked about some of the things of AI you're excited about. What are you most worried about as far as AI is concerned? Maybe one thing each.
We go Sandeep first. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think misinformation, right, especially in use cases where you want students to use your applications, LLMs have this tendency of vomiting, right? I think there is no to any, there is no to anything. So that's where I believe we want models to be kind of making sure that they give the right information, and if not, I think a sorry is also okay, but I think that's a difficult part. But yeah, hope like the new models and the new things that are coming up would solve this.
Yeah, the hallucination rates do go down as
They
the
did
models
go
get
down,
bigger.
but eventually you want your systems to be as accurate as possible, right? Because teachers are 100% accurate. And if your aim is to build an AI version of a teacher, you want your systems to be as accurate as possible.
Yeah, of course.
So I would say I'm not really worried about anything as far as AI. I'm sure all of us here are well aware of the responsible use of AI, whether it is in terms of getting the accuracy, the fairness, intellectual property. One thing that I'm personally really important in terms of taking, as he said, about 500 billion plus impact on our economy is about data. Without data, there is no AI. And again, talking about India use cases, healthcare, agriculture, finance. We all know that our systems have been built over the years in terms of very federated architecture. Again, look at the healthcare data. The healthcare data is stored where it is generated, and it is a very heavy data. Not taking all the data to one central location so that we're able to draw insights. It is siloed, so the point about portability and interoperability of data will define a lot of things in the way whether we are able to drive insights, whether for the users, for the policymakers, or even for administrators. So beyond the normal use cases of chatbots, enhancing the citizen experiences, conversational, unless and until we get the data strategy right, we will not be able to embed AI into our real-time business use cases so that the users are able to really focus on the complex missions or their complex tasks rather than looking at AI as a tool only for repetitive tasks. So that is what I want to get the data strategy right. And again, for that, the public sector, the private sector, the ecosystem, all of us here in this room have to come together to make this happen.
So in my case, I think, first of all, I'm super excited about the implication of AI, but there are probably three parts to what I'm concerned or scared about. And this is me, not just as someone who's working with, leading corporate, it's also me as an individual, as a dad, as a citizen, etc. The first part, I think, is AI. Think of AI as an amplifier. That's how I think. It amplifies the best of humans and the worst of humans. And I think that amplification is quite scary because it can really, really amplify. And I'll give you a simple example. Two of my really close friends run a mental health chatbot. And they run this company called Wiser. They're the founders. And Wiser talks people off the ledge, young people when they're close to self-harm and extreme forms of self-harm. A model like Sandeep said can hallucinate and drive people to the edge as well. How do you ensure that it doesn't amplify the worst of us? That's one. The second part I'm concerned about is the fact that legislation will just not be able to keep pace. We legislate based on history. And in history, you always had time to understand the implications of something and then legislate. Governments would do that. Today, this changes so quickly, legislation is just scrambling to even stay close, let alone stay abreast. And that gap will only widen. And the third part is, it's going to put a lot of onus on us as individuals, as societies, as communities, as governments, to do what we call as right. Sandeep used the word right. I think the question is who defines what's right, because right for each of us is different. So the self-standard is super, super critical. So I think these are three things that scare me. But as human beings, we are tuned to survive and thrive, so I'm hoping we'll get through this as well. So, yeah.
So we've got about a minute left. So why don't we end the panel with maybe an interesting story about AI and how it impacted you? Anyone wants to take this?
No, again, I've been talking all about government use cases. One example that again, by the way, again a fact, India spends $380 billion of our money is spent on public procurement. Until now, there was no one central public procurement system. Now, Government of India has built a system called Government e-Marketplace, which is today does $50 billion of gross mercantile value, and this platform is about to become the world's largest public procurement system. And the point here is, in again a diverse country like India, how do you make sure that the people from rural villages, people from tier 2, tier 3 cities are able to be a part of this huge economy? Until now, they were not able to make that happen. But now, with Government e-Marketplace, it is enabling ease of doing business. It is adding inclusivity, transparency, and maybe because of that, now a lot of small traders and entrepreneurs who were not able to participate in the public procurement are now able to do these because this is a complete online system, which does close to maybe 9,000 page views per second, 1.5 million interactions a day, and 1,000 crores, which is $230 million of GMV every single day. And not just that, they are using AI in terms of, because they do a lot of e-auctions, reverse auctions, so a lot of pricing validations are done using identifying the historical data and patterns. So I think platforms like this will again make our country very, very inclusive and accessible. Everybody can participate in the economy.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a slightly lighter story, if that's okay. I know we're running out of time, but I'll take 30 seconds. I went to a school. My classmates, we were very close. We're on a WhatsApp group. So we debate two things. We debate politics and we debate cricket, like all of us do on WhatsApp groups, other than the good morning messages. So I'll leave the politics out, but on cricket, whenever, and I'm a diehard Indian fan, I have been all my life. Whenever we play badly, you know how it is. We all slaughter Virat Kohli's imaginable off stump and all of that stuff. So each time we do that, now what we've started doing is one of my friends posts us an AI model, how is India doing at cricket? We actually do it in Perplexity, and we take a screenshot of that and post it back on the group. The narrative is overwhelmingly positive. So we all walk away from that thinking, okay, we've had one bad day, but we're still pretty good at this goddamn game. So just a small example, but that gives you a sense that it takes us away from the self-flagellation that we do as fans every time India does badly. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing your perspective, folks. This was great. Thank you very much.